let's talk about this book, the Taking of Jake Livingston by Mr. Ryan Douglas. Jason tried to jump into his DMs and ask him out, but just like in high school, he got turned down.
Yeah, I haven't figured out like the way to it. I'll just leave that joke alone. All right, yeah, it didn't work out.
16-year-old Jake Livingston sees dead people everywhere, but he can't decide what's worse, being a medium forced to watch the dead play out their last moments on a loop, or being at the mercy of racist teachers as one of the few black students at St. Clair Prep. Both are a living nightmare he wishes he could wake up from, but things at St. Clair start looking up with the arrival of another black student, the handsome Alistair. And for the first time, romance is on the horizon for Jake. Unfortunately, life as a medium is getting worse. Though most ghosts are harmless and Jake is always happy to help them move on to the next place, Sawyer Dune wants much more from Jake. In life, Sawyer was a troubled teen who shot and killed 6 kids at a local high school before taking his own life. Now he's a powerful, vengeful ghost, and he has plans for Jake. Suddenly, everything Jake knows about Dead World goes out the window as Sawyer begins to haunt him. High school soon became a different kind of survival game, one Jake is not sure he can win. I can read.
Yay! You did great. You did great, buddy. You did great.
If you don't know, now you know. We always do a 1-sentence review for pretty much everything that we review, and books are no different. So, Lisa, go ahead and give us your 1-sentence review.
The Taking of Jake Livingston is great for lovers of horror, but definitely not for the faint of heart.
No, that's all right.
Man, that was such a professional review. As we get into the slummy part of the review here, my 1-sentence review is more this bordering on 2 sentences, but what's scarier than a ghost or being black and gay in a predominantly white school? I'm probably going to say the white school.
Mine is, man, high school would have been a lot cooler if I could talk to ghosts. I don't see what he's complaining about.
Oh my god!
All right, let's get into it. Let's talk about this book, the Taking of Jake Livingston by Mr. Ryan Douglas. Jason tried to jump into his DMs and ask him out, but just like in high school, he got turned down.
Yeah, I haven't figured out like the way to it. I'll just leave that joke alone. All right, yeah, it didn't work out.
So let's start about the basic the plot of this book. Like, how do you feel like the story of this? How do you feel like how do y'all feel about it?
No, I dug it, man. I thought it was a very interesting way to play out the book. I mean, it's kind of a horror noir. The playing with the different chapters of the perspective gave me some George R.R. feels to a degree. Not as dense in the words, but just kind of different perspective.
Right? That's not a 30-minute chat or a 30-page chapter on a feast on how the
right.
I would have just cried. I would have cried and been like, no.
right. Close the book slowly. I'm not going to read this. I'm not going to read this at all. I did like that. So I admit the parts with Sawyer were probably my favorite parts, but also it always felt like it was taking the steam off of Jake's story. Yeah. Very much so. And so that kind of bothered me some more plot-wise. But then when it all meets, it starts to go, okay, I get now X, Y, and Z. I thought the plot was really good because it is some parts in here that once we get more in depth, really, really in depth, I want to really talk on about, whiteness trying to take over black bodies. We get that conversation I kind of want to have briefly. The thought process of even just family and being loved and how being loved in a love family can change someone from being a psycho to someone being maybe a little fractured, but also can adapt. Even I don't have any siblings, but even just the situation between his brother. But yeah, I thought this was very, very well done and plotted out. The only issue I had with the plot is like, and I shouldn't say this because I watched Dragon Ball Z, but Homeboy went Super Saiyan on his powers like out of nowhere. And I was like, hold on, we're gonna at least get a book training montage, like something, because he was straight. But I'll let it slide because my favorite part of all of this is the ancestors, man. That is like to put that in the book.
Oh my goodness.
Jesus. Oh, I've had to sit down a book. I was like, well, my tablet. I had to sit it down because it was just one of those things that just I was so filled with joy. And on a sidebar, this is why we do this club, or why we created this. It ain't gonna be no other book that I'm gonna read, probably from someone white, that's gonna talk about reaching out to the ancestors and getting the ancestors' knowledge and strength and wisdom. That is such a minority, African, Caribbean like kind of thought process and mentality of us praying and reaching out to our ancestors. So those
White
notes
Jesus
like that make me love it. Well, you know, they sacrilege Jesus on us anyway. But anyway, yeah, it just was a great thing. So sticking to the main of the plot, I thought the story, it was herky-jerky because of different perspectives. But once they get to the point where it kind of all kind of melds, it takes off. And I think those are some of the most chilling and horrifying parts of this book. And I loved every moment of that. I don't know. I don't know if it's a better way for him to make the book the way he did, because that's why I don't know. It took me a while to get into it. Let me just say that. It took me about a couple of chapters before I could kind of really warm up into the book. And the book's short. So that's why I think it hurt me a little bit, because it took me a while to warm up to it.
Lisa, your thoughts?
Okay, so couple things. One, I read this in one sitting. So,
of course you did. She read it last night.
I did.
230 pages. Right through.
It did take me about 50 pages to start like consuming it. It took me probably about an hour to read 50 pages, which is a long time for me. And I was nervous that I wasn't going to finish it for tonight.
It took you an hour to read 50 pages? Yeah. Man, that's like my reading level. Like,
yeah.
It's really hard to read 50 pages in an hour when you have to read every word out loud.
I'm like, if I can get 60 pages an hour, I'm like winning. I got to take a 15-minute break. I don't know if it's a good thing or bad thing. A lot of people in the thread let me know this is a good thing or bad thing.
Yeah, right.
I'm like a page a minute. I'm winning.
Yeah. So I was getting nervous. I was like, oh no, maybe I'm not, because I picked this book, I found it. So I was like, oh shit, did I pick a dud? And but no, once it finds that it finally gets that over that little hump, which I think is world building. He's trying to world build. He's trying to show us who Jake is. And he's trying to show us who Sawyer is without, like, obviously because of the back, we know that Sawyer is the villain, but I think he's still trying to give him a little bit of humanity. And but once he finds that stride, I could not stop. And I was literally that person walking around just like reading. And so I love the Atlanta backdrop. It feels like a love letter to Atlanta a little bit. I love the shout outs to, I texted y'all this earlier, that how he mentions Black trans women, and we all know that like so many movements are just completely forefronted by Black trans women. So I love that he nods that, and just says, he basically says where we would be without them. He's talking about the first encounter of his dad finding out that he's gay is just like completely ripping up his his trans magazines. Yeah, was it? I don't think one. I think one of them was just a magazine. I don't even think it was porn. Yeah.
Either way.
But either way, yeah. So I agree with Jason. I think that Sawyer kind of stole the show. Which is a reason why I think that he made Jake so OP, because I think he needed a balance, and it is, I don't know if it's necessarily like a love. I don't know, because I think that without River, Jake would have been just as bad as Sawyer, honestly. Like, and you kind of couldn't, I don't want to say blame, because I hate to do that shit, but like, even River says, well, I thought that maybe he'd be the kid who would shoot everyone up, so I'll be nice to him, when it should just be like, I'm just going to be nice to someone who's being picked on. and not like, hopefully he doesn't murder me one day when he shows up with his AR, you know? Like, but this book it fucked me up. Like, I had the craziest dreams. Like, and I was like sweating and nervous, and I had to wake up and be like, and it wasn't the ghost. It was the school shooting that just fucked me up. The ghost I thought was cool as fuck. I wish I had powers. I'm with Jason on that one.
I would not be complaining.
Ghost? Like, honestly, I'm so mad at the universe for not giving me any kind of powers.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I also like to mirror you guys' some of the things that you guys said. Yeah, the one thing that I really, really did not like about this book was the fact that it did not show a progression of how Jake became scared of his powers and not really wanting to use them to, I'm going to use this to beat the fuck out of this ghost poltergeist person. Because it felt kind of abrupt to me, and that's, as to Jason's point, was because like he kind of splits up the narrative between Jake and Sawyer, and it kind of definitely does is like a disjointed sort of stop, start, and by the time like we're starting on Jake, to where he's actually like accruing these skills, is like already halfway over, or more than halfway over. It's like 90% done, and you're like, oh, how do we get here? But to your other points, this is just phenomenal. At first, I did not like Jake. I'm gonna say it. I didn't like him as a person. I probably would not be his friend. He seems like how I was, just overly morose for no goddamn reason. But he does have a reason, obviously, in the book. Does suffer some abuse at times from his father, and then some I wouldn't say neglect, but just not paying attention by his mother.
They're latchkey kids for sure.
Yeah, they're kids for sure. And like like him and Benji's relationship, I can attest to that. But yeah, this book, the things that happen in this thing, obviously, as a certain person of a certain age and a certain race, and I could feel a lot of Jake's pain in this book. I also too was one of the black kids in my school for the longest part of my life. I felt, ostracized and picked on, even if they weren't actually ostracizing and picking on me at times. I remember one time in Mrs. Buchanan's 11th grade English class, AP English, she made fun of me because I said the word aunt rather than aunt, and that's just how black people talk, So like a lot of the experiences with the exception of some of the more non-heteronormative experiences, I can relate a lot to Jake here. Wish I could see dead people.
Yeah. No, I'm good. I'm good on that. Yeah. I don't want to see no dead people. Especially in death loops. I'm definitely good on that. Y'all tripping. Y'all bugging.
Yeah, but he learns how to use it to like, I don't know, in the astral project, man. I would be a horrible human being if I could astral project.
We know. We know.
So thankfully God did not give me those powers. But yeah. I definitely, one of the things I really like, I liked how they built up, or he built up Alistair and Jake's relationship. It seemed like a very natural thing for me at first he's like, I'm not sure what this dude's about. Obviously, to the rest of us, that dude likes you, man. What are you talking about? But also, it's cool because like, he was like, okay, I like this guy back, but I have all these problems and I don't want to burden him with that. And one of the things about living life is like, you can't carry the weight of the world by yourself. You're going to need people to support you. And eventually he finds that in Fiona and Alistair, which is great. And I love how they became like a little Scooby-Doo gang, like almost instantly. Grady, on the other hand, he was kind of a dick friend to Grady. And Grady was kind of a dick friend, but like he was kind of, they were both dick friends to each other. I probably would have, I was disappointed in poor Jake for not, remembering to like get Grady into the party.
Excuse me. Grady got him high as fuck.
He got drunk as fuck.
Drunk as fuck. That's right. I was reading another book at the same time. Sorry. Drunk as fuck. He didn't want to drink. He's never drank before. He got so drunk that he passed out. It's not like he was ignoring his phone calls. It's not like he was just like sending them the voicemail. He was completely passed out and like having an out of body experience. Like,
he could have used a little self-control.
You better stop. You better stop.
But I second it. Like a lot of the friendships in here are not healthy at all.
Yeah.
They are very.
But they're kids, and sometimes you sometimes when people have been friends and they don't know why they're friends anymore, you know, like I think that's a very real. I feel like the relationships were very realistic, like because I've definitely had friends where I just look at them and I'm like, oh, I bet we'd be best friends, and then it's like, hi, should we be friends? You know, and sometimes it's just like instant. And then sometimes you're like looking at people you've been friends with for, 10 years and you're like, I don't even like you. Why are we still talking?
Time out. We've been friends for like 20 years.
Did I say 20?
Okay, just making sure. Just making sure. Okay, I'm just trying to
Everything's not about you, Jason.
Yeah.
Just making sure. That's why you just gotta ask questions.
But I felt like he, in his, inner dialogue, he even kind of says to himself, I don't know why I'm really friends with him. I don't really like him.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like he really likes me. And we just kind of are here. And I guess he's the only friend I have. So I'll just stick with it. It felt realistic. Can we talk about how he has all of this shit going on? He's seeing ghosts in death loops. He's a freaking serial killer trying to take over his body. And he's worried about his family finding out he's gay.
Yeah.
Like that is the thing. And like the forefront of his mind. Like he's literally being beat up constantly by ghosts. And he's just like, oh God, hopefully they don't know that I looked at Alistair for too long. Like that's so sad.
When he was in the hospital after his encounter with Sawyer, which the whole murder thing, I think probably should not have happened.
How he murdered the uncle?
Yeah. I feel like that's something that needs to be addressed.
Yeah. Did he get away with it? Like nobody knows. Like no one.
I didn't even think about that tonight. It just kind of happened.
That's something that needs to be addressed. Just like, oh, I just gotta live the fact that I killed the man. Like, no, you gotta live the fact that the cops are probably hunting for your ass. All right. But I really like this the scene with him and Benji when he does finally come out of the closet to Benji, and Benji's like, duh. And then he also realized that even though Benji and him had his problems, Benji really was like his brother. Like when his dad beat him up, Benji was there to get smacked too because he was defending his brother. And even though he's not the best brother,
no,
I'm gonna give Benji a little bit of the cape on how he handles the school thing. And Jason, you would know better than I would, but I hate to be like this. All right, look, if I'm one of the few black people up in this school and I'm accepted, and I know that's my brother, but I made to let my brother take the L so I keep this acceptance. Like, I hate to be that way, but I'm like, at that age, the peer pressure and understanding that you don't want to be ostracized and want to be the outside, I felt bad for Jake, but I also didn't feel like Benji was an a-hole for allowing it to happen. I kind of was like,
I don't think Benji's an asshole for that aspect of the relationship. He definitely sometimes antagonizes Jake too much, but also Jake, is too smart for his own good sometimes.
He's a smart ass for sure.
Yeah, he's a smart ass for sure. But yeah, I get where you're coming from because there is a certain amount of trying to fit in to survive. I don't think Benji was necessarily doing that because he was definitely, fucking whoever. Saying whatever to the teachers. But there's also like a part of that where you're just like, I don't give a fuck about this system, so I'm not going to show that I do. And I feel like, that's probably what Benji was doing, was like, he had realized very early on that they don't give a fuck about him, so he's not going to, as Jake says, he doesn't wear the uniform. He just wears whatever he feels like when he goes to school. He literally does whatever he wants. He argues with the teachers, you know, he does whatever he wants, and yet he's still not expelled.
Yeah.
I mean, I wish my brother had slept with my bully's girlfriend. I would have thought that was awesome.
I think also, so Jason and I have it's hard because we're not older siblings.
Yeah,
so
we're
the younger siblings. So Jason and I are the younger siblings. We're the babies.
Yeah.
So, and we're hearing, so Benji is an older brother, and I just don't know. I don't know the perspective of the older sibling. As a younger sibling, I will always go after anyone who's going after my sister, right? Like, I will fight them. You don't talk about my sister, blah, blah, blah. And I feel like she would be the same way towards me, but I don't know. But that's just because that's how I would be. So I would think that she would be the same, you know?
Yeah, I mean, having an older brother, having several older brothers. You know, my brother Ali, yeah, he was very much alike of a Benji in my story, if we were. Yeah, he was my primary antagonist, but also if there was a problem, he would be the first one to go and swing on the kid if he was picking on me or whatever. Yeah. Though he could have actually slept with my bully's girlfriend, that would have been great.
Yeah, Ali, God.
Like, he could have done anything else. Also, it's great that I mean, like, this is the name that the bully in this, his name is Chad.
I know.
Yeah, that's pertinent.
Yeah. And who did he stab Chad's hand? With
a pencil? Yeah.
With a pencil, yeah.
Whenever he did that, I was like, yeah, stab him in the eye. He's such a dick.
It's like, especially after like that whole like scene, because I've read The Crucible in a room full of white people, and like you know, it's not an easy thing to get through when you're like, well, what about Tituba's like, you know, responsibility in this? You mean the slave? What does she do? It's I can understand that frustration, especially since that kid's been doing it for years, right? And just been like not physically assaulting Jake, at least not in the book, I don't think, but like just that mental bombardment, it does wear on you. And I wish I had stabbed a couple of people with pencils. I mean, I probably would have been a better person.
Right. I thought was interesting in the book for me that it was hard for me to reckon with, and I got to do this thing where we have to do these things called disclaimers because people aren't smart enough to get context. We're not. No one on this show is saying that anybody who's pushed to pull out the atrocity of a school shooting is justified. There's nothing ever justified for that. As we get that out of the way,
he was totally justified.
I felt bad for Sawyer. Like, and it's this whole dichotomy. It's like, especially as a black man, one, I don't feel bad for pretty much no white man. I'm just going to call it what it is. But I did feel bad for Sawyer. And then in the very next chapter, you get Sawyer being a complete a-hole by trying to like take over Jake. And so I always felt this whole book, majority of this book, so conflicted because like you realize that this Sawyer is just a traumatized, mentally disturbed boy / man that like all this stuff isn't any of his doing because of how he was treated and the life that he led. But then you get to the point where now he has the choice. He can make choices, I hate to say it, in his afterlife. And the choices he's making are very villainous, and it makes it almost feel like his villainous act, which it is not a product of the fact of all the trauma he exacted, which they did kind of try to say it was from the trauma because when Jake finally got to get his whole backstory, and I get that part, and that was very good portion they put it in the book, which was smart. But it was, I don't know, I felt like you almost made me too sympathetic for Sawyer. So when he's going after Jake, who, like I feel like Jason, who wasn't likable to me, kind of halfway through, I was like, yeah, fuck Jake. And then it's like, but I don't want this white man taking over this black dude body. This ain't the plot to Get Out. We got to figure something else new. But I don't know. I don't know how you guys felt about that, but I felt all the way through the book, I was so pulled because I'm like, damn, Sawyer got it bad. I mean, the assault, getting like, I mean, all that shit is crazy.
And here's the thing with Sawyer also is like not because just of what Uncle Rod did, but you think that maybe since Uncle Rod and his dad, I can't remember what his dad's name was, were good friends. Bill were good friends. They always hung out with each other. right? He would hang out with them together.
Yeah, it wasn't the first time.
Yeah, it wasn't the first time that Rod almost did something to him.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Sawyer got assaulted his whole life.
Yeah,
I think he probably just he obviously had a dissociative personality where he almost talks about himself in the third person a little bit, or at least thinks about himself kind of objectively. And so when he was describing his uncle first taking him out to the woods, I immediately was like, this poor boy just been sexually raped. Like, it happened. And so I just, even without him saying it, I just assumed that that's what his uncle was doing, like, the whole time. With the scene. And I just think that the scene of his uncle coming over to his house, replacing the fan, which he, fixated on so much because of the broken blade from where he tried to,
hang himself.
Yeah, we didn't do a disclaimer. So there's a lot of triggers in this book, y'all. Just so
there's a lot of stuff going on in here.
It's only like 240 pages, and it's like, wow.
Yeah. So, so when that happened, I think that that's the first time that Sawyer was actually in his body, actually realizing and accepting what was about to happen to him. And he was like, oh, I have power to stop this because they have given me the power because they've taught me how to build, assemble, and kill people. Like, honestly, that's what I think. He finally felt the power. He said, oh yeah, they've been teaching me for years how to take care of this. So I think that Sawyer, he had every opportunity to be better, but his fucking mom.
Oh my god, it's always the moms.
Yeah, like, and this is a case where I think it's the parents' fault, really. Like,
yeah, 100%.
She took him out of the Hapeville institution, like, against doctor's orders. She wasn't making him take his medicine. She was making sure he had access to firearms,
actively, making sure that he knew how to have firearms. His sister was
telling the mom, hey, he's still torturing animals. And she's,
and she's also antagonizing him too. And knowing that he is, mentally unwell.
Yeah. It was literally a cocktail.
It's a lot.
It was a lot. Yeah. So I do think that this book is a good example of why mental health is so important.
Exactly.
And not making it taboo, and just really, because the mom was just embarrassed of having a kid in the hospital, but she's not embarrassed having a kid who shoots up a high school. Like
your boy's dad from that club.
I was just about to say, I said, it's funny because
that's how it happens in real life.
Thank God he wasn't gay. What? What? Yeah. I don't want to get started on that. It made me mad.
How art imitates life.
Yeah.
This book did one thing that I wish they would do more in books, especially in fantasy novels, where the protagonist actually talks to the antagonist and why are we doing this? Why are we in this conflict? I screamed when he did that. I was like, are you actually talking to him and trying to figure out his motivations? And just yo, we don't have to be enemies, man. We don't have to fight each other. We can just stop killing people. That's the only reason we can be friends. Literally, I wish almost every fantasy book would just if Harry was the Voldemort, yo, I'm 13, man. We don't have to do this right now.
Yeah. Can we just pause and tell him about
you go have fun, do your thing. I'll see you in 10 years, okay?
Yeah.
He's let me finish puberty all the way, and then we can,
Yeah.
But I also want to talk about, even though he does have this little love letter to Atlanta, this boy got a lot of mileage out of his bike. I don't know where he's where are these cities that he's going to that the next town over on his bicycle in Atlanta?
So I was thinking about, I think there was a time where I was just he did not just ride his bike to Little 5 Points, but he didn't. Alistair drove. I went back to double check because I was just like, this mofo is not riding his bike to Little 5 Points. And then I'm like, oh, okay.
Also, Alex, tell me that you don't have the rights to any of the shops there where you don't put the Vortex. That's the best. Even the Vortex burgers suck.
Doesn't matter. It's a staple. It's a staple.
I do not like their food. No offense. If you guys wanted to sponsor us, I love your food. Do not like the
yeah, okay. And so, I guess you're getting long on the tooth for the so. But on that, I just want to say real quick, is I just thought it was interesting. Again, another example of whiteness trying to take over black bodies and use it as a tool to progress an agenda. I thought that was just a very interesting thing. I wish we could have had him on. Oh God!
What?
Don't
what
get started on him either. Yeah. I wish we could have gotten Ryan Douglas on because I would love to hear if that was the perspective he was giving, or it's just happenstance, or even his thought process on there. Because I thought that was very, very interesting. But I also thought that just even with that going on, the connecting to the ancestors is a way out, as a way almost to say tapping back into your natural and true self as a way out to empower yourself, which I thought was a really good message that I took from it. To say, hey, look, you've come from a strong line of people. You're not weak. You've never been weak. You've only been allowed to think you're weak because of what's been trying to encapsulate you. And I think going to a predominantly white school gave him feelings. Being gay gave him feelings. Then you have a ghost who, for all this time that you've seen ghosts, they never really bothered you. Now this is trying to make you feel weak. And so to feel like his strength came from reaching into himself, reaching into his blackness, reaching into his culture, reaching into his history to empower him. I thought it was a very good message because I'll be real. Me and Jason had those talks a lot about, like, as a community, we don't know our history well enough. And that's why we fall for the stuff like the Herschel Walkers. Herschel Walker doesn't exist if he knew his history.
Yeah,
he wouldn't exist because
it's really hard for Herschel Walker to know his history because of the CTE, but
right? Maybe he got beat up by a ghost.
Yeah, we don't know his story.
Get political, guys.
I just thought that was really right. I thought that was just really dope, and again, I wish he could have been on the show to really talk about that because I thought that was an excellent add to the book. And I'll admit, like, this book club has been great for me because reading these books by Black people really, really, really. I guess, and I don't know, because I want to speak to more white people. I don't know if they get that experience when they look at their art and culture, but I know for me, because I guess we don't get a lot of it, when it's things that I can just wholeheartedly relate to, it just makes me feel more comfortable in the entertainment or in the book or in even walks of life. So going to this book club has really gave me, like, being really, really comfortable in these moments when it's just like, oh, like, because I know there's such a cultural aspect of certain things. So anyway, I'm here for the book, man.
Yeah. Last thing before we go into our review or ratings of this book, I just want to talk about how it was written. This dude has his simile game on point.
Oh,
on lockdown.
Yeah.
He has similes coming out of the woodwork. I don't even know. Like, obviously, like, I checked his bio. His other stuff is his other book that he's published is a book of poems. You can definitely feel that in this book, that he knows how to liken as and is a word to make a point across. I'm like, where'd you pull that from?
I know there was one where I wish I was reading on Kindle, just because when I read on Kindle I like to highlight. Yeah. And there was one line where I was just like, oh my God, it was so beautiful. I read it like 4 times and I can't even remember now. And
that's why you were so sleepy.
Good though.
right.
Y'all but it was something like it said something like Atlanta is, I don't know, the sunset or something like that. And I was just like, and I just like read it 6 times. I was like,
and at least Lisa was like, oh, that's a bar.
Yeah. It's so beautiful. It was just so beautiful.
Yeah. Like, I am like truly impressed about like just how he's just like, and it's like, he never uses the same simile twice. It's not like he, in some books, writers will fall back on the same sort of, like, there's, because it's their style, they'll fall back on using that. I mean, Tolkien does it 1,000 times, but this guy, like, every single, even if he's describing the same thing over again, he uses another freaking simile or another metaphor, and it's nuts. It's absolutely insane. I wish I could write like this. That's why he has a book and I don't.
And this is his first book. This is the first book
his first book, which I am jealous.
Very impressive, honestly, because usually the first book, you go back and you're like, okay, I get it. But I do think that that's a reason why we do have some of those little disjointed moments that we're talking about because he's still trying to find his, his way, his voice, style, and all that stuff. So, but my God, for it being his first book,
yeah,
bravo, sir.
All right, let's get into our review, our rating system of this. If you know, now you know. If you don't know, now you know. If we like something and we think it's good, we give it a head. If we think it's a mid, like some bad weed, we give it a can or circus. And if we think it is absolute garbage, we give it a cannon. All right. So, lady and gentlemen, or they and thems, let's rate the story, the plot of this book. How would you rate this in our little system here, Lisa?
What are we doing? Out of 5? Out of 10?
No, the head. The
oh, head. No, sorry. I just had ADD.
Whatever I said.
I forgot. Okay, no, it gets head. It gets head. The story's.
Mr. Jason?
Yeah.
I'm going to give it a cannon because, like I said, it took me a while to really get into it. So.
Yeah, I messed up everybody with the system. Canon is actually the nice stuff. It's middle.
Yeah.
You guys know it. It's in the
name.
That's
what I was thinking about when you asked me, and I was just like, "Wait, did he say? Have I been doing it wrong this whole time?" And like, what's that? Yeah. Okay.
I'm going to agree with Jason and give it a cannon on the story wise, just because I feel like when we were starting to get over the hump, it just progressed way too quickly. But it's just the rating system, guys. Don't kill me on this. All right, character wise, what we're gonna give it? We'll start with Jason first.
Characters, I give it a head. I mean, I will admit I have some homophobic stuff I have to work out in my life. So the romance that was 90s. Here, the romance that was done here made me feel a bit uncomfortable, but I thought it was so well done that I brought in. I was rooting for him. So the characterizations I think are really, really good. It's not that many characters anyway, so he does a really good job. So I'm definitely gonna give it a head.
All right, Lisa.
Yeah, all the characters felt realistic. Another reason why I wish he could have been on, so we could have said, "Are all these real characters in your life?" Because they all felt too real. So it's got to be head.
Dude, do you think he might actually? This is just an autobiography. He actually fought a ghost.
Listen, that could explain why he didn't message us back because he's so busy with ghosts.
Fighting ghosts. And I'm like,
he doesn't have time to hit us back in the DMs.
I wrote the book and that's all I could get out because I'm too busy fighting off the hell spawn and demons and having an exciting life.
But he ain't afraid. He ain't afraid of no ghosts.
I also too would give this a head with the characters. Obviously, being a Black guy who has some of these experiences, they will always resonate with me if they have anything that's remotely like my life. And this guy just definitely hit the nail on the head on that. All right, and lastly, let's see here. What can we do that's fun? How gay is this book? In a good way. like. Go ahead.
I'm gonna escape out of that one because I don't know what the pendulum of gayness is in this one. But I'll say for me, I'll rate the horror aspect of it since it is a horror YA book. I thought the horror of it is a head. I mean, the zombified spiders, yuck. Yeah, I'll give it a head. That was crazy.
Lisa, you can choose whatever you want to do.
Okay, so I mean, I don't know how to do the gay thing because I read a lot of LGBTQ fiction.
Oh, so you'll be perfect. So, you would know how
so this is light. Like this is like Disney Channel would put that love story on, like that.
He's read the Alphaverse.
It's yeah. So I mean, that's my. I probably see dirtier shit at Kroger. So, which none of it was even dirty, I should say, but so the horror aspect, I think it gets a canon. It was because I think it was a little bit heavier on like the supernatural, like the fighting with the Dragon Ball Z fighting with. I almost imagine the ball and him just like Kamehameha and and all that stuff. So yeah, so horror gets a canon is the middle, right? I'm not sure of anything now.
So for me, I'm going to actually answer my question. You don't really get to see a lot, especially in the media that I consume. You don't get to see a lot of, hetero or homosexual relationships and just being, portrayed as regular relationships.
Yes.
You don't get to see a lot of that. And this book, I can only think of like two things that I know in media where they actually like have a homosexual relationship that is grounded and feels to be like real, like a real relationship rather than just look at these two guys on here having sex or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And the one of them is Star Trek Discovery, and the other one is this book. And I really, really enjoyed just how grounded this was, and how like it. I was like, oh, when he held Alistair's hand, I was, about time.
I know. I know. And then he's like so excited. He's like, now I have the third kiss.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, you're so cute.
It was very cute, and I really enjoyed that aspect of it because even though we are Black men from the 90s, we can grow and learn and be better than what we were. And I remember a time where I would have picked up this book and read that and be like, ugh, gross. That's, because I was an idiot. Now I'm not.
Yeah.
All right. So now we're going to do our actual whole rating scale from 1 to 5. Mm-hmm. 1 being garbage and 5 being the opposite of garbage, which is stuff that you can use that still works for them. Lisa, on a scale of 1 to 5, what would you rate this book?
This book gets
it's only 5 numbers.
I know. I'm trying to imagine if I was a teenager, like I read this as an adult. I think as a teenager reading this, it would be a little bit more impactful. So I'm gonna give it a 5.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Teenage Lisa gives it a 5.
Mr. Jason.
Right. I'm going to give it a 3.5. I really did enjoy it. I think at the beginning it's a little slow, and then also he does have a very, I think you mentioned the simile game, but he has a very articulate way of writing. So it does take a little bit too to get used to how he smooths through the book a little bit. So I'll give it that. I mean, but everything else in here is really strong. Eventually they got to make this into a movie because, like you said, that spiritual spirit blowing by us would be great. So yeah.
I would be happy with an anime, honestly.
That'd be all. That'd be so dope.
Not made by what's his face from Cannon Blasters. We got to get someone else. We got to get someone else.
Yeah, he'll make Jake stink, and we're like, we really hate him now.
I'm gonna give it a 4.5. Yeah, Jake. You smell, Jake. What is that?
I'm sorry, Jason. I'm sorry.
What is that?
It took me a minute to be like, what?
If you don't know what we're talking about, please go to our Cannon Busters review, and you'll understand.
Yes. Yeah. You'll understand that reference.
But yeah, I'm probably gonna force my kid to read this book. I'm gonna give it a 4.5 out of 5. I think definitely for teenagers, especially teenagers who might be going through some shit, this might help them.
Yeah, my kid already started reading it. So
yeah, my kid doesn't like to read. He likes to. Don't give me that look. You don't, unless it's Harry Potter, and I'm like, oh, you got to get away from that, son.
It's the devil.
He's a wizard. That means he worships Satan. That was our review of Erased. If you like what we're doing while we're doing it, please feel free to like, share, subscribe, call your mom, call your grandma, tell them to get on here, put the comments in here. Yes. As I said, this helps us with engagement. It gives us the algorithm, feeds the algorithm its little bits and juices, in which the algorithm then spits out for us money. Which is what we want.
Pass on links to people, friends.
Burn it to a CD and give it out at the barbershop. I got this fresh podcast out there. I don't know why you would do that. We're like literally on the internet, and everybody has the internet in their phone. But old school dudes, right?
Yeah,
that's the ones we want. We want the old school dudes. Go ahead and pick up some Mahi's brandy from my man Glenn. If your liquor store don't got it, tell them that's what you want. You know what I'm saying? Some Mahi's brandy. It's good. Goes with some juice. put that pineapple, grapefruit, or orange juice up in it. It's delicious.
I love how Jason bought the rest of us a bottle as well.
I'm
Leadership
selfish.
follow.
I'm selfish. Don't worry, but I'll make sure we drink it up. Next game night, we'll be sipping on it, having a great time. But again, the Mahi's brandy. Shout out to my man Glenn, DMV baby. Holla back. But yeah, I think we had a full slate because I think we're going to try to do Strange World, the new Disney movie
Strange World
that flopped.
Well, they flopped because they didn't market it at all.
Well, and then it has a gay in it, so you know what that means.
Yeah. And black.
Gay
and a black.
Yes. Oh, they would
a black gay.
Yeah, go woke, go broke, I guess.
Yeah.
Even though you don't promote it or tell anybody this movie existed, but whatever. But yeah, Strange World, Wednesday, and yes, I forgot what was one more, but we'll figure it out.
Yeah, we'll let you know. Or we won't, and y'all just not watch it and just enjoy our wonderful and witty commentary about it. That's the thing y'all can do too. You don't have to watch everything we watch, but if you did, you would have more enjoyment.
Probably enjoy it more.
Yes.
Just a little bit.
More.
Thank you. Always be kind, be considerate, and tip your bartenders and servers at least 20%, if not more, if you can afford it. And happy Thanksgiving, y'all. Yeah.
And if you see Jared,
Indigenous People Day.
Say what's up.
Yeah. Say what's up with your fists.
Wow.
Peace out, everybody.
Say what.